All right. Welcome to the home of the Inner Self Rising podcast. My name is Magan, and you are listening or watching a podcast all about self-development and living authentically. Today, I have an amazing guest, my friend, my fellow poet, brilliant writer, and overall amazing human being, Anastasi. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Margaret.
Anytime. It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be talking to you about your amazing collection of poems that you've got out. And so I'm pretty stoked. But before I do that, I have to read your bio because I want my listeners, or by the way, I call them outliers.
Okay.
And so basically the outliers are people who I've wanted to connect with after going through, a little bit about my story, but after leaving Islam and after coming to terms with my own sexuality and, reckoning with my own trauma, I've had to, I left my own bubble. I left everything I knew to be true.
Right.
And I left, my world, my foundation. And so I was in this place where I was like, okay, I got to kind of figure this out because who I am is not in line with my bubble of origin. And so let me try and figure this kind of situation out. And so since then, I've wanted to connect with people like me, like-minded people, who I call the outliers, who are the people who have left their bubbles or they just don't agree with the values of their own bubble, and they're trying to navigate how they're going to exist authentically. Yes, that's the outliers, but also the outliers are, if you want to use poetry as an example, Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken,
Yes.
that's pretty much the outlier. They've got these two roads, they've taken the one less traveled, and that's made a world of a difference. And it's made a world of a difference for me. It's just been, just meaningful, painful, but it's made me feel alive and connected to myself and, all those kinds of stuff. So anyway, so the outliers need to, understand the amazing stuff you've achieved throughout your writing career. And you've been basically winning awards or being shortlisted for awards since 2009. That's amazing. That is amazing, man. I can't stress how amazing that is as a, poet. That's fantastic.
You.
So
I'm just writing and hoping for the best. That's the
Yeah.
And
that's right.
It's always surprising when those things
I can
happen.
imagine. But if anyone deserves it in Melbourne, it's you. It's you.
It's very kind.
It is. It really is. All right. So I'm going to read your bio. So Amanda Anastasi is a poet from Melbourne's West whose work has appeared in unexpected places, from the walls of Artist Lane in Paran to the Massachusetts Review. Her work has been featured in Australian Poetry Journal, Griffith Review, Cordite Poetry Review, Right Now, and Best Australian Science Writing 2021 and 2022. Amanda has been the recipient of a Wheeler Centre Hot Desk Fellowship, where she wrote a series of poems set in the year 2042 during her 3-year poetry residency at the Monash Climate Change Communication Research Hub 2029 to 2022. Amanda was tasked with communicating climate change and the 2020 Australian bushfire crisis through poetry. Following this, she was the recipient of a NILMA, Sydney Literary Travel Grant, writing poems at the Great Barrier Reef. Amanda's poetry collection, The Inheritors, published by Black Pepper 2021, and Taking Apart the Bird Trap, recent work press 2024, where she explores grief as a transformative experience, the first and second generation migrant experience, and the beauty and complexity of human connection. Taking Apart the Bird Trap will be launched at Readings Emporium on Thursday, 5th September as part of the Sonic Poetry Festival. And outliers, please come to the book launch. If you're in Melbourne, please come and support Amanda. And also, can the book be pre-ordered at this stage?
It can be pre-ordered at the Recent Work Press website.
Okay, the Recent Work Press website, your website as well, can they?
My website?
As well, yeah. Can they find the book? Yeah.
www.amandaanastasipoetry.com.
Okay. Please support. If you can't come, please buy the book. All right. Let's do this. So, your book. And it was especially a timely book for me. As you know, I lost my older brother
Yes.
recently, and so before even his passing, and his passing has just added a new layer to to our own relationship with our own mortality.
Yeah.
And before that, I suppose, as I was saying earlier, as part of this journey that I've gone on, I've had to kind of build a relationship, or a positive or a more meaningful relationship with my own mortality. Because when I was a
Right.
Muslim, for example, it was all about fear, and it was all
Mm.
about hell, and you had to fear the next life, because if you didn't do what Allah, God, wanted you to do, then you were going to burn in hell. So my relationship with my own mortality was that. I
Right.
was, we're all human. We're all kind of scared of our own of dying. But for me, being Muslim was that added extra layer of like, all right,
Right.
not only am I going to die, but I'm going to have to try and make it to heaven and kind of escape hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I left, and so it was, but there was no meaning there. It was just all fear driven,
Mm-hmm.
And when I had left, I was finally free to kind of develop a healthier relationship with my own mortality. So before the passing of my brother, I was on that journey, and I was trying to build a relationship with my own mortality, because I didn't want to live on this world. I didn't want to exist pretending that I wasn't going to die. And I think that's kind of what we try and do as human beings, is pretend that we're not going to
Yeah.
die. And so that kind of makes us make certain choices in our lives. But if
Right.
we're more conscious of the fact that we're going to die, then
That
that changes everything,
Yes.
So, your book's about the passing of your father, and I just wanted to know, how has it changed? Has it changed your relationship to mortality? What was your relationship before he died?
Well, the book opens with a poem called Afterlife, but it's about the afterlife of memories. My father was actually an atheist, and he actually said to me, and this is the way the poem opens. Actually, I'll just read the opening lines
Go for it.
because he actually said this to me. When I am gone, there will be nothing. It will be as if I am asleep. He really believed that that's it. We have one life. And he said, I'm going to be dead. When I'm dead, I'm going to be dead, right? Opposite.
Yeah.
But what that did was it made it really final that he was gone. And in many ways, the grief, it really made me look very deeply into my grief. It was felt like even more of a loss. But, I had been raised Catholic. I moved out of that. And my dad as well. He was born Catholic. He was born in a very Catholic country, Malta, where the priests ran the village, where you couldn't speak out against. And he rebelled from that, and I rebelled from that. But very much in the Italian and Maltese culture, there is this kind of it's part of the culture. So a lot of people don't really take the religion that seriously. So it's not. It was never shoved down my throat kind of thing. But I hold on to this idea that we have one life. Our time is limited, and we need to make the most of it. And I think what you're referring to there is this idea that we're going to get a second chance. And we don't know that, And I think, the one issue I have with organised religion is that it claims to know that, And, there is the Socrates quote about, wise is he who knows that he does not know. At the end of the day, we need to experience this earthly experience, and spirituality is such a personal thing. And we can turn to religious texts I see a religious text as literature. It was written by someone for a purpose. There are positive things to be gained from there as there are in any other text. but we need to think for ourselves and understand that, yes, there are many things we do not know. There is a great mystery about our existence here. But we need to discover what our purpose is and look more deeply into life and mortality and not just, listen to people's point of view, but form our own thoughts and listen to our own intuition about things.
Man, yeah, well said. The thing, like I'm still grieving and about my brother, and one of the as beautiful as it is to make meaning out of our own mortality and to have a relationship with it.
Yeah.
And this is just me, the grief talking. It's probably, like I just think death is so cruel. That's something that I'm struggling to get past. I'm like, so does that mean everything we've gone through, the good, the bad, all doesn't matter? Like we're all just gonna die. I don't, and that's it. And like I said, I'm like an agnostic atheist.
Yeah.
So,
Same.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm agnostic. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, and the reason why I'm not a staunch atheist is because I haven't died and I don't know.
Right.
And whether God exists or not is almost irrelevant because he's clearly if he is out there, he's clearly a non-interventionist being.
Right.
Right. So
it's not the God that humans have created, because we are not capable of understanding that something that is a high consciousness to ourselves. So we attach human characteristics to God.
Oh my God, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I always say I couldn't tell the difference between like Allah, God, coming from my context, Allah, God, and just a vengeful, angry individual human being. I just couldn't. Eventually I could not tell the difference because when I came across vengeful, angry human beings, it was the same as Allah and God. It was just the exact same, just angry about things that don't really matter. Really vengeful about things that don't matter. And things that do matter, he seems to just kind of stay out of it, has no answers for, and I'm just like, but for you, like, what's your feelings on the finality of, like, just the idea of, like, because I know for me, like, I'm never going to see my brother again. And that's like...
I do find it hard to believe that that's it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
It's really interesting because, in the book, I really look deeply into my grief and a lot of the emotion, because I wrote through all of that.
Yeah.
Writing this book was like a way of moving through my grief. And I think that, people say things like, I feel that loved one with me or that they're watching over me, but but then you think, your logical mind says, well, all of these memories are coming back to me because my brain is trying to process what has just happened. But, at the end of the day, if all I have is memories, that is a wonderful thing to leave. When my father passed, I felt like all the things that I cared about, that I thought were important, weren't. Like, my ambitions seemed ridiculous. I just realized how important the human being present with each other is, and how we are always looking back or looking to the future, and sometimes we're just not really in the moment with people. And for me, the big struggle was all of the unsaid things between my father and I, because I was kind of raised in a family where we didn't say I love you to each other. My father was a real emotional wall. I'd never seen him cry. We had a bond and there was love there, but nobody could say it to each other. And so I was fixated on the idea that he didn't know how much I loved him. And I didn't know how much I loved him until he was gone. So I was like, whoa, you know, it's kind of like when you lose a parent. I don't know what it's. I haven't lost a brother yet, like you, but
Yeah.
when you lose a parent, it's like the sky has been removed, and by that I mean the sky's always been there. Sometimes you remember to look up at it, and sometimes you just think it's just there, because ever since the day you were born, it was around.
Wow.
And then suddenly, something that's been around since the day you open your eyes to this world is gone, and you're like, it's very, it takes a lot of adjustment, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm just
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So I was, I don't know about you, but I didn't know how to respond to people, because people have their own way of responding to grief, and
yes,
actually where I come from, what you say is pretty much scripted. It's,
right, yeah,
you say the things that that's expected of you religiously. May God have mercy on him, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, it was like, I don't believe in this anymore. The way all of that has been harmful to me. But my brother has passed away, and he was Muslim, and so it was just just
you couldn't grieve in the same way that everybody around you was grieving.
no. That's exactly it. I couldn't. I couldn't, and there was no way to express that, and there was no way to give room to that, because the bubble that I come from, there's no expressing that is heretical.
You're right.
It's a taboo. It's a no. You don't. And so, and like at my brother's funeral, like his passing, all the people that I grew up with and people I haven't seen in 20 years, and it transported me back to my childhood. The only difference was my brother wasn't around running around,
Right.
and I'm an adult now with my own experiences, and it just reminded me of how my bubble of origin is not mine, was never mine, and
Yes.
and did you kind of deal with something similar like that? How did you deal with people responding to your father's passing? And
It was a very interesting situation.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I have my parents were divorced, and
Okay.
most of my father's family are overseas, and most of the family I have is from my mother's side. They participated in everything, even though my parents were divorced. But it was up to me what I wanted to do.
Wow.
My father said he wanted to be cremated, and I created a service that I thought he would like. And my father was a real rebel. He did things his own way. I said, everybody wear something colourful. And I did the eulogy, and
Oh
I
my
had,
God.
and everybody, really nobody, the thing is, I'm pretty resilient as far as if I need to get up and speak, even if I'm in a state of grief, I can do it. It's just something I've been able to do.
Yeah.
And I'd ask a couple of people to read, and they just couldn't do it. They just didn't have them. I got up and did a eulogy, and I was really honest, because the relationship between my father and I was one of real honesty, where if we disagreed, he'd respect that, even though I'd tell him things that I didn't approve of or whatever. And there are things about him I didn't like as much as I loved him. So I really painted a full picture of my father, and also, I did what I wanted, which is the opposite experience. You probably didn't have that.
Yeah. No.
But I felt like that's what he would have wanted.
Yeah.
He was a gardener. He was a very colourful person, so I made sure there was like colourful everything. His paintings were displayed. My father was a real estate agent, and he was a painter in his spare time. So he was this creative spirit that, didn't really fully realize it. Maybe bursts of creativity here and there. That's where our bond lied.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I had to, I couldn't find any of his paintings, and I had to like contact people. Do you have one of his paintings, whatever? And I just put them all at the service, and it was really weird because he had become very isolated. He was living on his own. He'd gotten out of touch with everyone, so I couldn't even contact a lot of the people that used to know him. So
Oh, okay.
it was really interesting. In many ways, I felt very isolated. Like it was an interesting situation because I was the only child that was still speaking to him. And so I was all he had left. So for me, as soon as he passed, I had to take responsibility of everything, and it was all on me. And then so that delayed the grief because I just had to get things done.
Oh my God.
And then my grieving happened once I could just step back and go, okay, everything's been done and I've organised everything. And my father died very suddenly in a car accident as a pedestrian. He was hit. So it's a very difficult way to lose someone because it's sudden. It's the police get involved, obviously, So there was the shock of how he died, and also losing that person, that one person that I felt truly loved me, and valued me and respected me as a person. So he was that parent for me. So I had to, losing that one person that I felt, really got me and liked me for who I was, even though we didn't agree on everything. There was that. It changed everything. It just sort of cracked me open. I don't know if grief did that for you. And I just started making decisions about my life. I left a relationship. It just completely changed me. Yeah.
Man, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, grief definitely did crack me open.
Yeah. Did you, when you were grieving, for me, things just, there was a clarity, and even just when you look at things, you notice things you haven't noticed before. Like I would look at a bird longer, or everything, you start to pay attention to things in your that used to be in your peripheral vision.
Yeah.
That you just have you're more present, and because you're forced to slow down.
Yeah.
You have no choice.
Yeah. Your body,
Yeah.
I'm a lot slower it's harder for me to do things before his passing, tasks gotten harder. And I feel like my body's just slowed down, and not without my consent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did my father died when I was 15.
Wow, that's young.
But I didn't grow up with him.
Okay.
So I didn't know him that well. And I was 15, and at the time, my dad was in Somalia when he passed away, and we were here, and my parents had, divorced when I was 4. So I I grew up in a very abusive household, and with my mother, and my siblings and I all have responded differently to.
I understand that.
We've all responded in our own way, and so coming back to things that you realize, after the passing, my older brother, I never really saw how deep this need he had. So he always desperately wanted our mother's validation and love by any means necessary. Even if it meant to hurt himself to get her love, he would do that. And I always saw that, but I only realized the extent to which his desperation for her love kind of was after his passing. And kind of making sense of certain things and certain ways he behaved, and and I'm just like, oh my God, that's and so for him, there was salvation was through her. She held the keys to his salvation.
Right.
His absolute love, absolute salvation. It was her.
Wow.
And that's sort of how she raised us.
Mm.
That's the lens with which she expected all of us to.
There was a control.
Oh yeah, absolute. I mean, like, I categorize her as a narcissist, and I always say this, and I always feel like I have to say this, but I'm not diagnosing her because I'm not a psychologist, because there's always people who are like, oh, you're not a psychologist, who do you think you are, diagnosing her. I'm like, I'm not diagnosing her, but there's like the term narcissist for me, it describes perfectly a set of behaviors.
Yes.
Like certain qualities about certain people, right, who do bad things, okay? And so for me, when I see a narcissist, there's two qualities, really, two traits, main traits, is they're extremely entitled and exploitative.
Yes.
It's really a disease of the conscience, right? So they have these two qualities, and there's no signs of them trying to fix this or work on it. There's absolutely no signs. They're more than
Set in
okay with it.
stone. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my mother. And so and then we all responded differently. I've gone no contact with my mother, but my brother couldn't do that, and he suffered throughout his life, and after his passing, I just, learnt more about that desire that he had, and making sense of things in the past. And I'm like, it's a lot. It's a lot,
Yes. I mean, the parental relationship is difficult enough without the parent being a narcissist. I mean, because I've dealt with a narcissist in my life. It wasn't my parent, but I could imagine how complex how it plays with your head, and to try and find yourself within that, almost impossible. You need to disengage. There's no other way.
Yeah. It gets to a point. It's almost like it's life or death. It gets to a point, because I believe there's.
Well, I call it choosing you, choosing me.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's hard, because you sometimes have to really distance yourself from certain people, and they weren't particularly like that.
No. That's exactly
And
it.
family, it's very difficult.
And we live in a world that's, worships parents, and worships family in this way. I'm a family-oriented person.
Yes.
But I don't believe just because someone's your family, your blood family, you should sacrifice your life for them. And you should you should have a relationship with them where they're taking advantage of you, or there's abuse, all those kinds of things. I think, no, I didn't choose to be your family, right? I didn't choose this. And I want to be, I'm happy for us to be family. I love that. But I'm also at the same time not going to self-mutilate, because that's what it is. You self-mutilate, and eventually you become a shell of yourself. And that's one form of death, in my opinion. That's one form of death. There are so many people living in the world as shells of themselves. That's a version of death. That should almost be criminalized. I mean, really not. But, it's a form of murder. It's a form of murder. And there's people out there all the time existing dead.
In a sense of not really thinking for themselves, allowing others to control them, or others' expectations. And it takes a lot of courage to just say, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Regardless of what everybody else around you is saying. And sometimes it's good to spend a lot of time on your own.
Yeah. That's
I know people who've never lived on their own. They've and look, for myself, I went straight from my parents' house into marriage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
And then I got divorced, and then, there wasn't a lot of alone time between divorce and the next relationship.
Yeah.
So I had these 2 long-term relationships. And now, so after my father died, and I broke up with my partner, and I sort of released the toxic people from my life.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I'm spending at least a year alone.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm still working and doing things,
Right.
but not involved in I'm not going to start a new relationship. I'm not, and to really figure out what I want, how I want to move forward, and I should have done that a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was like going from one box to another, or one trap to another.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. But, you know,
we need to just spend time alone without the voices. You know, sometimes we have to silence the parental voices, and
It's
and the, you know, I'm not saying that parents don't have something valuable to say. There are some parents that,
Right.
you know, but everyone has their own unique journey and their own unique experience, and healthy distance from other people's expectations, and especially if you feel that you have a family member who's trying to control your life.
Right.
That's just not healthy
at all. And for me, like, I am naturally an agreeable person, as much as that's quite
Yes,
often a
I've
surprise.
noticed.
Sorry.
I've noticed you're very agreeable.
Yeah.
You're a nice person.
Cheers. So I am naturally an
Yes.
agreeable person, and sometimes that's surprising to certain people.
Yeah.
And that's who I was growing up, and that's naturally who I am. But at the same time, I've learned to say what I think, you know, and really value that which makes us human beings, which is the ability to think, the ability to create, the ability to create our own destiny, you know.
Yeah.
And so much of, at least my life, has been a fight for that. And that itself has been a grieving process.
Yeah.
But I do want the outliers to get a taste of your book. So if you could read
Okay.
a poem from your book, that'd be amazing.
Okay. Well, I think a really relevant poem to read was one that I wrote when I was 2 months after my father passed. I had a residency at the Great Barrier Reef writing, and I was writing about climate change at the time. And I did write a bit on that, but I was grieving at that time. So I ended up writing poems that were more personal than what I was assigned to do.
Okay.
This poem is called An Option. There is no time to board a vessel remaining still at port, shifting only in reaction to the movement of the waves, merely imagining a new voyage, sitting before an advancing tide, cracked open by new grief, holding the fresh and awful knowledge of transience. I see what must be done. I have arrived at the point of envying the bold eye of an empty-bellied gull, the progress of moray eel, of clown and cardinal fish over coral, the astonished face of the masked diver. New voyage is an option, at all times, in all places, a revival of movement, a newly paced step. In less sculpted replies and realms, I am going to recognize myself. I thought that was a relevant one to read.
Yeah. Oh man, that journey of recognizing yourself, that's deep.
I was completely alone. I was very isolated. I was on residency on my own, and the isolation of grief. I mean, I don't know if you felt that, but it's an isolating experience because you never really feel like anybody else understands your grief.
Yeah.
You can't explain it. And in a way, that book was my way of exploring my own grief and trying to express it that I couldn't do verbally. I had to write. But I knew I had to, I just realized how short our time is. And I knew I had to move forward with more courage. So,
Yeah. It does. It does take courage. It does take courage, and it's taken me some time to understand that, to understand that, you know, going your own way takes courage, especially as you get older. I don't know about you, but as I've gotten older, you know, when you're younger, when you're in your youth, you have this energy, right? You have
Yeah.
this like energy, and, you know, you can take over the world, and you're on top of the world, and, you know, you're never going to die. And, you know, you just,
Do you think you have all the time in the world?
oh my God. Oh
And
my God.
you sort of, you don't think that far into the future.
No, no, no.
And you know what you know at the time. You know, as you experience life, you experience loss, disappointments, and all of that, and you learn more about yourself. You know, it took me a while to know who I was or know what I actually wanted. Because, as we were saying before, our own voice is mixed up with all of the other voices, and we think we want certain things and then realize, no, actually, I didn't really want that.
Yeah. You know, that's actually my work. One of my biggest fears is making a decision, thinking that I'm making a decision about my life, like a core decision.
Yeah.
It's going to lead me somewhere. And then, knock on wood, I have a long life, and I'm in my 70s, 80s. I look back, I'm like, that wasn't even for me. So-and-so made that decision, or that idea led me to make this decision. That is my worst fear. I've already lived that. Like, you know, I've already lived that most of my life.
Yeah. I wish I had done so many things sooner.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in the right place to do that. I was very overprotected as a child. Like, it took me a while. I had to really meet other people and find role models outside of my family.
Interesting.
And you know, I studied writing straight out of secondary school.
Yeah.
But I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but
Oh, wow.
I didn't really know what I wanted to write about. You know, I hadn't lived life yet. So it wasn't until like 10 years later, after studying professional writing and all that, that I actually wrote for real, like seriously.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I was starting to find my voice.
Wow.
And even as a poet, my voice has changed. This is completely different to the kind of poetry I was writing.
Yeah.
You know, over 10 years ago, I'm more in the poems. So I'm not, you're always in your poems, even if you're observing the world or writing about something else, you're always in there. And I knew I was in there, but it's almost like veiled, you know, like behind a bit of a screen, you know.
Oh my God. I did that with my first collection of poems.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was about grief.
Yeah.
It was about grief. And I did that. And there were certain things I wanted to say explicitly, but I was just too scared and I wasn't ready. And I said them covertly, you know. And a lot of the stuff had to do with, you know, at that time when I published the collection, I was still Muslim, but I was really questioning Islam and questioning God in general and all of that, but I couldn't.
Right, but you couldn't articulate it, or you didn't feel like you could put it out there?
I didn't feel like I could deal with the ramifications of putting it out there. Yeah, I didn't. I at that time I was like, there's no way I'd be able to handle putting out there and what that would entail, because you know, since coming out as ex-Muslim and being gay, is a whole lot has happened. You know,
you have to get to the point where you just don't care anymore.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So I felt compelled to write. I had to write because there were all of these unsaid things. And I was going through so much. So during the grieving process, I was leaving a relationship and the breakup was really toxic. And it was just, I was going through a lot at that time. Yeah. And writing was almost like the bridge to the next part of my life. Yeah. I was writing through it, and I'd never done that before. Right. And I wrote it for myself. And that made a difference. It was almost like it wasn't going to be published.
Yeah,
It was only at the final editing stage where I realized, yes, it's going to be published. I better like perfect it and all of that and craft the poems well. And all. But there wasn't that self-censorship while I was writing.
Yeah.
I just had to get it out. And, you know, there are things I've written about that I felt nervous about. But I've let go of that because I think, you know, there's something that actually you said, which is, you know, you have your story and your voice, and you have a right to to tell that,
Yeah.
and as do I. And we
That's-
need to be able to do that without fear.
That's exactly it. That's exactly
Yeah.
it. And how do you do that? Like, so, got the chapbook coming out, my book coming out this year, and it's really like personal, and the narrative is pretty
Possibly offensive to some
possibly,
people.
yeah, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's my story, and
But see, it's about you,
yes,
and that's the difference. You're not writing to point the finger at somebody, or
no,
you're not. It's about your journey and your experience, and nobody can take that away from you. And I think that's the difference for me when I felt like that I had a voice and I had the right to
right,
tell my story, and that's how you connect with people. The more you write like that, the more terrified you are when you're writing, the more it's going to connect with somebody else. That's what I found.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel the need to send your manuscript to your siblings, family members when you're writing?
No.
You didn't. Yeah, you didn't. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
My family don't read my poetry.
Safe.
Like I have some family outside of my nuclear family that are really supportive of my poetry and want to, they'll buy the book and everything. But for instance, I knew my mother wouldn't read it. I knew, and just none of them are going to read it. So, so that kind of gives you a bit of freedom, right? You're like, everything's going to read this. But
It does. Yeah.
there might be some people that read it that there are people in the book, like they're still around.
Yeah.
I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'd been through enough where it was like, I just don't,
It's
That's
your
a big
story.
step for me because I cared a lot
Right.
before about gaining approval, not upsetting anybody. I'm a very respectful person. I still am, but when it comes to poetry, when it comes to my creative output, you can't touch that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm going to be respectful, and I'm very, throughout difficult things like a breakup, whatever. I'm very private when it comes to my art.
Yeah.
That's up to me.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I've been forced to be an open person about my personal life, about my story, just because of my context, because my community culture is very collectivist. I come from a very honor-based culture.
Yeah.
And so everyone's kind of responsible for the other one. So whatever I do that's deemed inappropriate, just not right or sinful or whatever, is a reflection of those around me, And so I was naturally a more private person, but because of that context, I was like, well, I don't want anyone to use me against me.
Right.
So guess what? I'm going to put it out there.
Right.
And it's out there. So what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's already out there. It's out there. So
it's like it's not your problem. It's theirs.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's a big step to take because you feel like this sense of responsibility over anything you put out there, and you don't want to hurt anyone. And I think we're both empathetic people.
Yeah.
But I look around at the other people in my life and they're saying whatever the hell they want and they're doing whatever they want, and it's just like I'm just being really respectful and kind and kind all the time. But even look, because I am an empathetic person, I'm not writing from a place of judgment.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Yes.
I'm writing from a place of wanting to understand.
Yes.
And I'm allowed to do that.
Yes.
And
Yes, that's right. That's exactly it. I'm going to get you to read another poem from your collection, if you can.
Well, I've written a lot of one-line or mono-stitch poems.
Ah, yes.
So I thought I'd read a series of those.
Okay.
And this is a form I absolutely love because you need to condense a great deal in one line.
Yeah.
And I just have so much fun doing it. To the lavish room is a modest doorway. Misfit is my necessity. I no longer speak over my own voice. I am turning the magnifying glass on myself. I walk down an unnamed street. The fourth me is about to be born. I think we have a lot of different versions of ourselves that throughout our life. I don't know if you have that feeling.
Yeah. I've had so many different versions.
Yeah.
So my collection chapbook that's coming out this year,
Mhm.
so like I said, it was based on films that's like helped me throughout my life.
Right.
And most of those films, almost all, are coming of age films. Because I've felt like I've been coming of age my entire life. That's literally how I felt.
Right.
You know, and so I've had many lives, many
Yeah.
lives. I just feel like I've continuously coming of age, and for a while I was kind of ashamed of that because you're told coming of age is
Yeah.
a particular point in your life,
Yeah.
but I feel like it just kept on happening,
Yeah.
and people have a really good way of pretending like they've got it all figured out, that they have all the answers, and so for a long time I kind of fell for that, and I thought, oh, okay, so they
Yeah.
all know and I don't know. I was trying to work out how the hell they knew, and
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I've come to realize, no, people are pretending. It's a mask.
Right.
It's all these
Right.
things.
You're the one that's being honest.
Yeah, I realized that. I'm like, oh my God, like I spent years feeling like, okay, some sort of education that I missed that
Mhm.
you all got because you understand the script
Yeah.
and you seem to be seamlessly following the script. Although later on as I got older, I realized that they weren't.
Mhm.
And they were leading double lives.
Right.
There was all these issues, and I was like,
Well,
oh
that's
my
the
God.
problem when you're living under this imposed kind of, adhering to a certain way of life and religion.
Yeah.
To sustain that, and people find other ways to be themselves and to, it's not a normal way to live, but it's been normalized.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
normalized
It has to the point
to
where, to the point where like meeting someone who says what they mean is just like, at least for me, I don't know if,
I know. Yeah, I'm a very open person. Like I'm a private person, but when I say something, it's the truth.
yes.
And some people find that
Yes.
a bit jarring, like, yeah, and members of my family and otherwise. But you can't be honest. You've got to be honest with yourself in order to be honest with others. And what are we here for if we're just going to be pretending? And yeah, more is there to say?
It's that's exactly it. And I think of like, living in Australia. We live in Australia where we have our civil liberties, we have our rights, we have the ability to express ourselves, to, and I get it, families, culture, this is that. There's all these other factors that like make people conform in these kinds of ways. But I just think we have the luxury to create our own life and to actually exercise who we really are, or go on that journey to figure out who we really are. And then, which for me, for a long while, I thought that's what everyone wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I realized, no, there are
No.
people who are just not interested in.
Well, a lot of people, it's self-imposed repression.
Yes, yes.
Like
yes.
you hear about, the idea of misogyny and women who, are almost like misogynist because they limit themselves, and this is what I want, and this is how I should be, and this is how a woman should live her life, and
Right.
the fact that I don't have children, and
Yes, yes.
that was really hard for my mother to understand.
Right.
Now she doesn't bother me about it anymore because she's
Yeah.
given up. But but that idea that, oh, how could you not want that? How could
Yeah.
you? Well, we all have a choice. Some people actually don't think they have a choice. They think, well, I'm going to do this and that because that's the way it's done, and that's what I will do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't question it.
Yeah.
If they do question it, they've got the voices and the influences around them just telling them, no, you should want this, and
Right.
And then sometimes it can work out well, but you end up with absent parents. People that didn't really want to do it at the time but it was the thing to do.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it has ongoing effects on their children, on it. So I think the more honestly we live, the better the next generation will be. We're modeling it, but we're also not creating trauma
That's
for
right.
the next generation.
That's right. That's right. I think it's it's so powerful because you got that in your book as well. You know, and when I was reading that, I thought that was so powerful because I grew up, you know, expected to get married, have kids. That was like expected. And as a man, I had more leeway in my culture.
Yeah.
I had more leeway, right? So, but I still felt that pressure.
Yes.
And so I often thought, man, like being a woman, that pressure would be just 10 times that. And
Yeah.
I applaud you for making a decision that's right for you. You know.
Yeah, I've always been a very independent person. I think I'm even more so now. I think everybody needs to learn how to emotionally support themselves, to be there for themselves.
Yes.
In many ways, I've been forced to do that.
Right.
Because I've had very emotionally avoidant people around me.
Right. Right.
And, you know, you can respond to that by craving that, you know, emotional connection, which, you know, at times I do. But
Yes.
you've got to get to that point where you can do it for yourself. And that's when I think you make the right decisions. Yeah. When you can be on your own, when you can be confident in your own choices and not be bothered by other people's opinions by it. Not seeking approval. That takes a while to. Sometimes you think you don't seek approval anymore, but part of you still,
right.
you know, and then,
right.
But there comes a point
yeah.
where it stops altogether. Well, for some people, it's a very liberating moment.
I can imagine. For me, it was an amalgamation of experiences and, you know, but deep down wanting my own liberation. That's like, as a value point for me, my own freedom is the most important thing for me. It's, you know, it's worth, there's no point living from my perspective if I don't have my freedom. The quality of life is just non-existent. But I actually did an episode on the podcast recently about, I called it, you know, an archetype of a woman that I grew up with who, you know, was modest and fit the script perfectly. Yeah. And who in turn turned that into a virtue. She was kind of like nasty about it. So for her, like in Islam, women have to wear the hijab. Yes. And so there are those who wear it because they're being observant, and there are those. And so I grew up with a lot of women like this. And there are those who wore the hijab because they had no choice. Right. But they turned it into a virtue, and so she wears a hijab because she's doing it for God, but she's also not a slut. You know, that was a lot of women that I grew up with. That was their mindset. You know, I'm wearing the hijab because I'm not a slut, and that woman there who's not wearing the hijab is that.
Is that really a thing that?
Oh yeah. It's and the more covered you are as a woman, the more virtuous you are, and then there's a whole issue between hijabis and non-hijabis, and you know the judgment that comes from the hijabis too.
There must be a lot of variations with how the woman relates to that wearing of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know, I know one woman who that was what she was like. But what they don't tell you is when you follow these rules, they promise you heaven, they promise you peace, you'll find peace, contentment, all these things. And you get older. She got older, started seeing girls her age who are living their life, and she realized that's the life that I could have led. Right. But the thing that was stopping her was all the years that she projected onto other people. Now her ego is involved now. Yeah. Where she can't make changes, because if she starts making changes, the people she bullied will then bully her back and be like, well, hold on, you bullied us for not wearing the hijab, but now you want to take off the hijab? What's going on?
This is the thing. That's why you've just got to do your own thing, you know. But look, I come from Mediterranean culture, and you know, I think all of us as women, we're fed these fairy tales and this and that, and this is what you want. You want to get married. You want to find the one. You want to have children. And this idea of what your life should be, even outside of Islam.
Yes.
And there are so many ideas around that people just follow or for different reasons. People have children for different reasons. People wear what they wear for. It really is just as I said before, finding your way through all of those influences. But a lot of people don't and are very comfortable and enjoy. A lot of people really value family and value. I want to have people around me, so whatever I need to do, they'll find ways to bring out these parts of themselves. But they need. And look, everybody needs people. We're social creatures.
Yes.
But it isn't about the right people.
That's exactly
right?
it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
And we don't choose our family. We choose our friends. But
yeah.
But I have family members I love. I just think they're wonderful people. And but yeah, family for me are the people. When you go through grief, when you go through certain life-altering experiences, you look around and you'll see who your family are.
Yeah.
That's and they might not be blood family.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah. That's exactly it. And reckoning with that is, I feel like the whole grief process, particularly when someone passes away, is like grief on grief on grief on grief.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. It's like,
because you lose other things.
Yes.
After that,
and other things become more real to you. There's something about us, as much as I hate being sentimental. I don't like it. I'm a sentimental person. I don't like sentimentality.
Yeah. It doesn't seem rational, does it?
No, that's the thing.
But I understand it.
That's the thing. Like I feel like you can go in the clouds and.
Yeah, I'm a clouds person.
Yeah.
But I'm also a rational person.
Same. Same. But
I have two modes.
Yes. And I don't like it. And so, in part, being in denial is also, I feel like, a part of us, what it means to be a human being. And I'm constantly fighting that because it's easier in the moment to view reality how you want to view it. In the moment, it's easier because you're not going to feel the pain you're going to feel. Long term, it's catastrophic.
Okay.
So I've had to learn that, and I've had to really cut all the denials, whether it's people that I've been around, my world, it's been, in part, it's been like, I need to get rid of any kind of force that's going to take me away from the truth. And then that path is quite lonely. And you have to then reckon with loneliness and what that means for you, and
but sometimes it's better to be alone than with the wrong people and influences around you.
I absolutely, I would a million.
I love my own company. I don't know about you.
Me too. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love my own company. Don't get me wrong. And I spend a lot of time by myself, with myself. And for example, I like dancing. I like going out dancing.
Yeah.
But I found that a lot of time, if you go out dancing with a lot of people, it's drama. Drama inevitably happens.
Drama.
Yeah.
I not much, any real interaction sometimes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of performance. There's a lot happens I don't like. So quite often I prefer going out dancing by myself because I like my company. I like my company.
That's next level, dancing by yourself.
I do. Yeah, I do that all the time. Because
that's great.
I can leave when I want. I can do what I want. I don't have to sort of, be mindful of all these other things. And I'm very aware of, sounds woo-woo, but energies. I'm very aware of so that also have to manage that as well. But before we finish, I'm going to get you to read one more poem, if you can, because we're almost running out of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
My poems aren't long, as you've noticed. So if you're running out of time, good person to have on this program. I think this is a good one. I'm purposely choosing poems that relate to our conversation.
Yeah.
So this poem is called Avoidance.
Oh, yes.
Another soft yet adamant thing clambers to reach you, barred by a cunning machinery assembled by your own disruptive hand. Go, work until you barely feel. Ascend and trek physical instead of heart distance. Now, snap seeming beauty. Tackle yet another riddle, external to the partially opened one within. Go, run from the wide-eyed initial version of you. It's safe here, though see if you do not falter strangely midway. Behind every seeming journey's rise is a lock to be picked. In a home, an abandoned room with a window on the verge of collapse. In that clumsy room is a call. Answer it.
Amanda, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I really,
You're
really, really do appreciate it. And Outliers, please get Amanda's book. Please do it. Come to the book launch. Any last minute announcements, gigs you've got going on? You got the poetry festival happening at the
I just
moment?
want to say that at my book launch,
Yes.
Magan is going to be one of my guest poets.
I am.
And Manisha Anjali and Angela
Yes.
Costi.
Yeah.
And it will be launched by Joel Dean, who's an amazing poet and novelist. And it's, 5th of September, Readings Emporium store. I am on the committee of the Sonic Poetry Festival, which is opening on Friday. We've got opening night, Friday the 23rd of August. And it's a 2-week festival in Melbourne. So if you're into poetry, spoken word, there's heaps of workshops and open mics and events to go to. So, yeah.
Amazing. Please come, buy a book, and peace out. Also, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Peace out.